The thing about living with your best friend is that you start to notice things, small things. The way Sophia always tapped her pen against her notebook when she was thinking through a design problem. How she left her sketchbooks open on the coffee table like invitations, pages filled with half-finished buildings and impossible structures. The way her laugh started low and built until it filled the entire room. Every time she padded from her bedroom to the kitchen in mismatched socks and an oversized hoodie. I'd been in love with my roommate for exactly 5 months, 1 week, and 4 days. Not that I was counting. We'd met 3 years ago in the architecture program at our ISD. Both of us wide-eyed transfers who bonded over our shared hatred of group critiques and our mutual obsession with adaptive reuse projects. Sophia was all about the poetry of space, how buildings could hold memory and possibility. While I approached everything through the lens of structural engineering load paths, material properties, problems that could be solved with math and careful planning. Unlike, say, being hopelessly in love with your straight roommate because Sophia was straight. Definitely, completely, women-only straight. She'd had that on-again, off-again thing with Marcus from the industrial design department for most of sophomore year, and even after they finally called it quits, she'd been on dates with other guys always. Coming back to our apartment with that particular expression that meant the spark hadn't been there, I was out. Had been since I came out to my parents at 17 during a particularly tense family dinner. My friends knew, my professors knew, Sophia knew. It had never been weird between us. It's just another fact like how I organized my desk by color-coded Post-its, or how I couldn't function without my morning run. Sophia was one of those people who made acceptance look effortless. She'd grown up with 2 moms in Seattle, had casually mentioned it during our first studio session together, while we were both covered in sawdust from building study models. My mom, Laura, is the architect. Mom Jess is the contractor, she'd said, like she was talking about the weather. They taught me that love looks like a lot of different things, which somehow made everything worse. November in Providence meant wind that cut through your coat and early sunsets that turned the city into watercolor. Our apartment. A 4th-floor walk-up in a converted mill building with exposed brick and windows that actually sealed properly, a miracle, became our fortress against the weather. We'd developed rituals. Wednesday study nights when we'd spread our work across the dining table that was really just a door on sawhorses. Saturday mornings when Sophia made challah French toast that filled the entire place with cinnamon. Sunday evenings when we'd walk to the river and throw rocks at the ice forming along the edges. It was a Wednesday when everything started to shift. Studio night, Sophia announced, kicking the door shut behind her with one boot. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, dark curls escaping from under her knit hat in every direction. Her canvas backpack was leaving wet streaks on the hardwood floor. And before you say anything, yes, I know I should have brought an umbrella. I looked up from my laptop where I was running structural analysis on a bridge design that refused to balance. One day you'll listen to me. One day you'll stop being right about everything. She grinned, that particular smile that started in her eyes and spread slowly across her face. Until then, we're at an impasse. She disappeared into her room, emerging 10 minutes later in leggings and the oversized wrist sweatshirt she'd stolen from me sophomore year. I deliberately did not notice how the sleeves fell past her fingertips, how she had to push them up to reveal the constellation of paint stains on her forearms. "I'm stress baking," she declared. "Chocolate chip cookies. The kind with sea salt on top. You in. Always." While Sophia clattered around our kitchen, barely larger than a hallway, but somehow containing every baking implement known to humanity, I set up our workstations. We'd been collaborating on our thesis projects. She was designing a community center and an abandoned textile mill. I was engineering the adaptive reuse components. Our models and drawings had taken over every horizontal surface. The thing about our Wednesday nights was that they had developed a certain geography. We'd started out at opposite ends of the table, maintaining the professional distance of collaborators, but gradually, over months of late nights and shared frustration, that distance had shrunk. Now we had our spot: Sophia on the left with her tracing paper and markers, me on the right with my laptop and calculator with maybe 6 inches of space between us, close enough that I could smell her shampoo when she leaned over to look at my screen. Close enough that when she got excited about a design solution, her knee would bump mine under the table. Okay, Sophia said, sliding a plate of still warm cookies between us. I'm predicting this structural system has at least 3 unnecessary complications. So in one moment where you're going to make me cry with math. Safe bet. I'm going with 5 moments where your poetic vision collides with physics and one where you try to convince me that aesthetic load is a real thing. Oh, we're doing this. Her eyes lit up with that competitive spark I loved. Loser buys coffee for a month. You're on. We worked like that for hours, arguing about cantilevered spaces and moment frames, passing cookies back and forth, our commentary growing increasingly ridiculous as the night wore on. Somewhere around midnight, the weather outside intensified. What had been steady wind became a nor'easter, the kind that rattled our windows and made the old mill building creak like it was remembering its industrial past. Jesus, Sophia muttered, glancing toward the window where snow was starting to stick to the glass. That's a lot scared, I teased. Of this storm? No. Of our building finally remembering it's supposed to be a river? She gestured at the exposed brick. Maybe. Another gust shook the windows and the lights flickered. We both froze. If the power goes out, we're not going to know whose design philosophy is superior, Sophia finished. Then I guess we'll both have to buy coffee, or neither of us. That's not how it works, isn't it, though? The power stayed on, but the storm seemed to settle something in the air between us. Sophia shifted in her chair, angling herself slightly more toward me. Not obviously, just incrementally. The plate of cookies between us became an obstacle, and without discussing it, she moved it to the side table. Now there was nothing between us but possibility and my pounding heart. I tried to focus on my calculations. I really did. But I was hyper-aware of every movement Sophia made. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear, leaving a streak of graphite on her cheek. How she worried her lower lip when she was thinking through a problem. The soft, unconscious sound she made when something on her screen surprised her. This is the most beautiful disaster we've ever created, she said. But she sounded content, happy. It's the most disaster. We're definitely presenting this to the review board. There's a part 2? I checked my watch. It's 2 a.m. Oh, there are 3 parts, she laughed, shaking her head. What's wrong with us? Excellent taste in collaborative chaos, Sophia said confidently. Then more quietly, I don't know. I like this, though. These nights, it's... She trailed off, and I held my breath, waiting. It's easy, you know? Everything else is complicated critiques, thesis, figuring out what comes after graduation, but this is easy. I didn't trust myself to respond because nothing about this was easy for me. Sitting this close to her, wanting things I couldn't have, pretending my heart didn't stutter every time she looked at me like I was the answer to a question she hadn't asked yet. None of that was easy, but for her it was, and that's what mattered, right? That's what being a good friend meant. A good collaborator. A good... whatever we were, we kept working. On my screen, the structural analysis finally balanced. On Sophia's, the community center started to take shape light-filled spaces that somehow worked with the existing mill structure. Another gust of wind shook the building, closer this time, and Sophia flinched slightly. Not scared, huh? I teased gently. It's the difference. Sure there is. But she was smiling. Then, in a movement that stopped my breath entirely, she shifted closer. Just a few inches? Close enough that our shoulders were almost touching. This okay? It wasn't okay. It was the opposite of okay. It was everything I wanted and nothing I could actually have. Yeah, I managed, of course. We worked the rest of the night like that. Not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel her presence like a physical thing. Close enough that when she got excited about a design breakthrough, the vibration of her enthusiasm traveled through the small space between us. Close. Enough that I had to remind myself to breathe normally, to not give anything away, to be the collaborator she needed me to be. The sky outside started to lighten eventually, the storm moving on as quickly as it had arrived. Sophia stretched, her hand briefly brushing mine as she reached for her coffee mug. And I felt that touch like electricity through my entire system. Okay, final review, she said, saving her files. I count 3 moments where physics 1 and 5 where poetry did. Poetry doesn't pay the bills, I countered, but I was smiling too. This was us. This easy banter, this shared language of space and structure. We'll see about that, Sophia said. But her eyes were soft when they met mine, and for just a moment, the 6 inches between us. We'll see about that, Sophia said. But her eyes were soft when they met mine, and for just a moment, the 6 inches between us felt like nothing at all. The thesis presentation came and went, we passed with flying colors. Our reviewers actually using words like innovative and synergistic. Graduation loomed, and with it, the terrifying reality that our time in this apartment, in this city, in this particular configuration of us, was ending. Sophia got offered a job in Boston with a firm that specialized in adaptive reuse. I got an offer in Chicago with an engineering consultancy that worked on historic preservation. Different cities, different coasts, different lives. We spent our last Wednesday night in the apartment, packing boxes and eating takeout Thai on the floor because all our furniture was already gone. The space felt echoey and wrong without our models and drawings covering every surface. This is weird, Sophia said, picking at her pad Thai. Packing up 3 years into cardboard? Yeah, I couldn't look at her. Couldn't think about the fact that in 2 days she'd be gone. She was quiet for a long time. Then you know what the worst part is? What? That I finally figured out the perfect solution for that cantilevered space in the community center. And now, I'll never get to build it with you. I laughed, but it came out wrong. There's always email. Video calls. Collaborative software. It's not the same. She set her food down. None of this is the same. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Outside, Providence was quiet, no storms tonight. Just the ordinary hush of a city settling into spring. Eva, Sophia said finally, and my name in her mouth sounded different. Careful, there's something I need to tell you. My heart stopped. Started again. Okay. I turned down the Boston job. What? I turned it down. There's this smaller firm in Chicago. They do the same kind of work. They said I could start in September if I want to do some traveling first. See some of the buildings we've been studying? Maybe. She took a breath. Maybe we could figure out the traveling part together? If you want. I know Chicago is your thing, and I don't want to. Yes, I said. The word came out before I could think about it, before I could worry about what it meant, or what came next. Yes. Sophia's face broke into that slow smile, the one that started in her eyes. Yeah. I was smiling too. Couldn't help it. But only if you promise to keep stress baking those sea salt chocolate chip cookies. Deal. She held out her hand and I took it. Her fingers were warm, paint-stained, perfect. Partners? Partners, I agreed, and just like that, the 6 inches between us disappeared entirely. The rain in Seattle never really stopped. It just shifted moods. Tonight it was a low, steady drum against the windows of the third-floor apartment I shared with Sam. The kind of sound that made you feel like the city itself was exhaling. We were on the couch, legs tangled under a shared blanket, watching The Thing for the 3rd time this month. Sam insisted it was research for his graphic novel project. I knew he just liked the practical effects and the way Kurt Russell's beard looked like it could survive the apocalypse. I was pretending to focus on the screen, but really I was cataloging the small things. The way Sam's sock had a hole at the big toe. The faint scar on his wrist from when he tried to skateboard down the dorm stairs freshman year. The exact pitch of his laugh when the blood test scene hit. These were the details I hoarded like a dragon with gold. It's untouchable. Mine, outside the storm, pressed closer. Inside, Sam stretched, his hoodie riding up just enough to reveal the pale strip of skin above his jeans. I looked away too late. I should crash, he said, nodding toward the window where water streaked the glass like tears. Critique at 9, I said. Even though the thought of him leaving the room felt like losing gravity. Night, Sam. He paused in his doorway, one hand on the frame. Hey, Eli. My pulse stuttered. Yeah, thanks for this. He gestured vaguely between us. The blanket, the empty popcorn bowl, the night, existing. Then he was gone. The click of his door was softer than the rain. but it still echoed. I stayed on the couch longer than necessary, listening to the ritual sounds of Sam's bedtime, the faucet, the creak of his mattress, the muted thump of his sketchbook hitting the nightstand. This was my life now. This apartment. This person. This exquisite, unbearable orbit in my own room. I stared at the ceiling and let myself imagine, just for a second, what it would be like if Sam looked at me the way I looked at him. If the space between us on the couch wasn't a chasm but a bridge. If his hands, calloused from pencils and charcoal, ever reached for me instead of the remote. No. I rolled over, pressed my face into the pillow. The bargain was simple. Love him quietly, or lose him entirely. I'd been keeping it for 8 months. I could keep it forever. The next week was a masterclass in self-deception. Nothing had changed, and everything had. Sam still left his coffee mug in the sink with exactly 1 sip left. He still hummed off-key while cooking eggs, but now his touches lingered. A hand on my back when he reached past me for the cereal. His knee pressed against mine under the kitchen table while we argued about whether Blade Runner needed a sequel. Or maybe I was hallucinating. Unrequited love was a hell of a drug. On Wednesday, we were both hunched over our laptops at the dining table that doubled as a desk. Battlefield, an occasional laundry folding station. I was neck-deep in a CSS grid that refused to behave when Sam let out a groan that could have summoned demons. Bad? I asked. He spun his tablet toward me. Professor Reyes wants emotional resonance in a logo for a grief counseling app. How do you make a logo cry? The design was stark. A single white feather drifting across a gradient of storm cloud gray. It was beautiful. It was also cold. What if the feather isn't falling? I said, what if it's rising? Like it's being lifted by breath. By memory. Sam stared at me, then at the screen. His stylus flew. The feather inverted, now ascending through the gray, trailing faint particles of light. Holy shit, Eli. It's just perspective. No, he said, not looking up. It's you. I added that moment to the vault. Saturday loomed like a dare. Sam's friend Juno was throwing a pre-Halloween haunt at her warehouse studio in Georgetown. Costumes optional, vibes mandatory. I hated parties. I hated watching Sam charm strangers while I nursed a warm beer in the corner. But Sam's eyes hazel shot through with gold were doing that hopeful thing, and I was powerless. We should match, he said Thursday night, holding up to thrift store finds, a vintage flight jacket for him, a faded NASA jumpsuit for me. Apollo 13, you're the astronaut. I'm the ground control who saves your ass. Historically inaccurate, I muttered, but I was already smiling. Saturday night. The warehouse pulsed with strobes and synthwave. Juno had transformed the space into a derelict spaceship. Caution tape, flickering consoles, fog machines, coughing dry ice. Sam had done my injuries with latex and food-coloring fake frostbite on my cheek, a gash across my forehead. His own costume was subtler. The jacket, a headset mic, a name tag that read Houston. You look like you've been marooned for weeks, he said, adjusting the collar of my jumpsuit. His fingers brushed my neck. Perfect. He moved through the crowd like a single unit. Sam introduced me as Eli, my co-pilot in all things. People laughed. I laughed. Inside, I was screaming. At some point, the music shifted to something slower, darker. Sam found us a corner near a stack of crates painted to look like cargo pods. He handed me a plastic cup of something neon. To not actually dying in space, he toasted. We drank. The bass vibrated in my ribs. Hey, he said, leaning close so I could hear him over the music. You okay? You've been quiet. I'm always quiet. Not with me. The strobes caught the gold in his eyes. For a second, the warehouse, the costumes, the noise, it all fell away. There was just Sam inches from me, studying my face like he was looking for something specific. Eli, he said, and my name in his mouth sounded different. Careful. I need to tell you. A scream cut through the music. Fake theatrical, part of Juno's haunted soundtrack. But it shattered the moment. Sam flinched, laughed it off. The spell broke. Never mind, he said. Later never came. We left at 1 a.m., buzzed on cheap gin and adrenaline. The walk home was quiet, the city slick with rain. Sam's shoulder bumped mine every few steps. In the elevator, he said, "That was fun. You should come out more." I came out for you. He looked at me sharply. The doors dinged open. Our apartment was dark, except for the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. Sam kicked off his shoes, peeled off the jacket. Underneath, his t-shirt clung to him from the humidity of the warehouse. He turned to me, and for the first time all night, he looked uncertain. "Eli." "Yeah. I lied earlier. It's not later yet, but I can't." He took a breath. "I can't keep pretending I don't notice how you look at me." My heart stopped, restarted, exploded. "What? You think I don't see it?" His voice was soft, almost lost under the hum of the fridge. "The way you flinch when I touch you. The way you light up when I say your name. I'm not blind, Eli. I'm just terrified." "Of what?" "Of ruining this." He gestured between us, the same vague wave he'd used nights ago. "You're my best friend. My favorite person. If I read this wrong, you're not," I said. The words scraped out raw. "You're not wrong." The silence that followed was huge. Then Sam crossed the space in 2 steps, cupped my face with both hands, and kissed me like he'd been holding it back for months, years. His mouth was warm, tasting of gin and the mint gum he chewed when he was nervous. I kissed him back like I was drowning and he was aired when we pulled apart. Foreheads still touching, he whispered, "Houston, we have a problem." "Yeah. I'm in love with my astronaut." I laughed, or maybe I cried. Maybe both. "Ground control, you're cleared for landing." Later, tangled in his sheets with the rain finally easing outside, Sam traced the fake frostbite on my cheek. "This is real," he said. "We're real." "I know," I said. And for the first time in 8 months, I believed it. The storm had passed. Inside, something new was just beginning. The Seattle University Autumn Festival was a kaleidoscope of chaos and color. Lanterns strung across the quad glowed amber and crimson, casting flickering shadows on the cobblestone paths. Students in elaborate costumes, fairies, pirates, superheroes, and everything in between wove through food stalls and makeshift dance floors. The air smelled of caramel apples, roasted chestnuts, and the faint tang of rain that always lingered in the Pacific Northwest. I, Sam Carter, stood near the edge of the crowd, clutching a cider in one hand and tugging at the hem of my half-hearted Robin Hood costume with the other. The green tunic felt ridiculous, but my roommate, Liam Hayes, had insisted, "You can't skip the festival, Sam," he'd said that morning, tossing the costume onto my bed with a grin that made my stomach flip in ways I refused to acknowledge. "It's tradition. Besides, you owe me for dragging me to that indie film marathon last month." Liam was the reason I was here, braving the sensory overload. He was dressed as a 1920s detective trench coat, fedora tilted just so, and a fake pipe he kept waving around for effect. The costume suited him, accentuating his broad shoulders and the easy confidence that drew people to him like moths to a flame. He was currently charming a group of theater majors near a booth selling glow-night arc face paint, his laughter carrying over the thump of music. I watched from a distance, trying to ignore the knot in my chest every time. Someone leaned a little too close to him. Liam and I had been roommates for 2 years. Friends since freshman orientation, when we bonded over a shared hatred of our dorm's communal bathrooms. He was my anchor, reliable, warm, the kind of person who made even the worst days bearable. But somewhere along the line, my feelings for him had twisted into something more complicated, something I buried under layers of sarcasm and careful distance, because Liam was straight, or at least I'd always assumed he was. He'd dated girls Melly, most recently, a journalism major with a laugh like wind chimes. Their breakup 6 months ago had left him quieter than usual. But he'd never given me a reason to hope for anything more than friendship. Tonight, though, he'd been different. Attentive in a way that felt deliberate. He'd stayed by my side as we navigated the festival, introducing me to his classmates, making sure I wasn't lost in the crowd. When a girl in a Cleopatra costume sidled up to him, batting her eyelashes and complimenting his fedora. He'd laughed politely, but kept his arms slung casually around my shoulders, like a silent claim. It was probably nothing, just Liam being Liam, but my traitor heart refused to believe that. "You good, Sam?" Liam's voice pulled me from my thoughts. He'd extricated himself from the theater kids and was now standing in front of me, his hazel eyes scanning my face with that intensity he got when he was trying to read me. "You look like you're plotting a heist, not drinking cider." I forced a laugh, adjusting my ridiculous feathered cap. "Just overwhelmed. Too many people. You're the social butterfly, not me." He tilted his head, considering. "We can ditch if you want. Grab some food and head back to the apartment. I'm not married to this chaos." "No, you're having fun," I said quickly. "I'm fine. Let's stay." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded, bumping his shoulder against mine. "All right, but I'm sticking with you. No abandoning my partner in crime." He winked, and I swear my knees wobbled. We wandered deeper into the festival. Weaving through stalls and dodging a group of drunk sophomores attempting a TikTok dance, Liam kept me close, his hand brushing my arm or the small of my back whenever the crowd pressed in. Each touch was a spark, a reminder of how badly I wanted something I couldn't have. I hated myself for it, the jealousy that flared when a girl in a vampire costume giggled at his jokes. The way my stomach twisted when he smiled at someone else. I had no claim to him. No right to feel this way. Eventually, we found a quieter spot near the edge of the quad, where the lanterns gave way to a small grove of maple trees. The music was softer here, muffled by distance and the rustle of leaves. We sat on a low stone wall, our shoulders touching, the cider long gone and replaced with bottles of water from a nearby vendor. "You sure you're okay?" Liam asked, his voice low. "You've been quiet all night." "Not your usual snarky self," I shrugged, picking at the label on my water bottle. "Just tired. Long week." You know how it is. He didn't buy it. I could tell by the way he studied me like I was a puzzle he hadn't quite solved. "You'd tell me if something was wrong, right?" Of course I lied. The truth that I was in love with him. That every moment we spent together was equal parts joy and torture wasn't an option. Not unless I wanted to ruin everything. Before he could press further, a couple stumbled into the grove, laughing and wrapped in each other's arms. They were dressed as Bonnie and Clyde, complete with fake Tommy guns and pinstripe suits. They barely noticed us as they collapsed against a tree, their kisses loud and unapologetic. Liam and I exchanged a look, half amused, half embarrassed, and mutually decided to head back to the festival's heart as we passed the couple. Liam's hand settled on the small of my back, guiding me through the narrow path. The gesture was protective, possessive, and it sent a jolt through me. His hand lingered, his fingers brushing the fabric of my tunic, and I wondered if he felt the same electricity I did. Probably not. He was just being Liam, thoughtful, tactile, infuriatingly perfect. We stayed at the festival until the crowds began to thin, the lanterns dimming as vendors packed up. Liam had indulged in a few spiked ciders, just enough to loosen his usual guardedness. He was all smiles, his cheeks flushed, his laughter brighter than the festival lights. I'd stuck to water, content to be the designated navigator back to our off-campus apartment. "That was a good night," Liam declared as we walked home. The streets quiet except for the crunch of leaves under our boots. "You made it better, Sam. You always do. You're tipsy," I teased, trying to keep my tone light. "Don't get sappy on me. I'm not tipsy. I'm happy," he corrected, nudging me with his elbow. "There's a difference." He fell quiet for a moment, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his trench coat. Then, out of nowhere, "Can I tell you something?" My pulse spiked. "Yeah, always." He stopped walking, turning to face me under the glow of a street lamp. His expression was serious, almost nervous. "You remember Claire? From last year?" Claire. His ex before Emily. A biology major who'd been sweet but intense. "Yeah, what about her?" "She said something when we broke up. Called me. Emotionally unavailable." He laughed, but it was hollow. I didn't get it at the time. Thought she was just mad. But lately, I've been thinking maybe she was right. I swallowed, my mouth dry. What do you mean? I think I've been holding everyone up to a standard they can't meet. Comparing them to something. Someone. His eyes met mine, and there was a flicker of something raw, something vulnerable. Does that make sense? My heart was hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. Who are you comparing them to? He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know. The rest of the walk was silent, the weight of his words hanging between us. Back at the apartment, I busied myself with shedding the Robin Hood costume while Liam disappeared into the bathroom. I changed into sweats and a faded band tee, collapsing onto the couch to try and process the night. My mind was a mess of hope and fear, replaying every touch, every look. Every word, Liam emerged in his usual post-festival attire. Gray sweatpants and a black t-shirt that clung to his frame in ways that should be illegal. Movie? He asked, already scrolling through our streaming queue. Clung to his frame in ways that should be illegal. Movie? He asked, already scrolling through our streaming queue. It's late, I said, but my protest was weak. Come on, one episode of something dumb. I'm not ready to crash. He flopped onto the couch, not in his usual spot at the far end, but right next to me. His thigh pressed against mine, his arm brushing my shoulder. This okay? He asked, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Yeah, I managed, my brain short-circuiting. Sure, we picked a sitcom we'd watched a dozen times, something safe and brainless. But I wasn't watching. I was hyper-aware of Liam's warmth, the way his breathing synced with mine, the casual way he leaned into me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Halfway through the episode, during a lull in the laughter, he spoke. Sam, can I ask you something? I turned to face him, my heart in my throat. Anything. He hesitated, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. When you came out? How did you know? Like really know? I froze. We'd never talked about this. Not like this. I'd been out since high school, and Liam had always been supportive, casual acceptance. No big deal. But this was different. This was personal. It was both gradual and sudden, I said carefully. There were signs I ignored forever. Crushes I wrote off as admiration. But then there was this one moment, junior year of high school. This guy on the swim team helped me with my dive form. He put his hands on my shoulders to adjust my stance, and it wasn't anything special, but I felt it everywhere. Like my whole body woke up, and I knew I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Liam was quiet, his eyes fixed on the TV but not really seeing it. Were you scared? Terrified, I admitted, but hiding felt worse. Being honest, even when it was hard, was the only way I could breathe. He nodded slowly, his jaw tight. Why are you asking, Liam? Just curious, he said, but his voice was strained. Like he was holding something back. The episode ended, and neither of us moved to start another. The room was dark, except for the glow of the TV's menu screen. Outside, a light rain had started, pattering against the windows. Still raining, Liam murmured, I like it, I said. It's calming. Yeah, me too. Another silence, heavy and electric. Then Liam shifted, turning to face me fully. In the dim light, his face was a map of uncertainty, fear, longing, something I couldn't name. Sam, he started, then stopped, his voice barely above a whisper. I think I've been lying to myself. My breath caught. About what? He leaned closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of green in his eyes, the slight tremor in his lips. I don't know how to say this. I'm scared it'll ruin everything. You're the best thing in my life, Sam. What if I say this and I lose you? Liam, I whispered, my voice shaking. What are you feeling? His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw it all the things I'd buried for years, reflected back at me. The want, the fear, the impossible hope. I think you know, he said, his voice breaking. Tell me anyway, I breathed. He closed the distance, his hand cupping my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin. I'm in love with you, he said, the words raw and trembling. I've been falling for you for months, maybe longer, and I didn't know what it meant. I kept telling myself it was just us being us, but it's not. I want you, Sam. I'm terrified, but I can't pretend anymore. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then I surged forward, kissing him with everything I'd held back for years. It was desperate and perfect, like puzzle pieces snapping into place. For a heartbeat, he was still, and I feared I'd misread everything. Then he kissed me back, his hands tangling in my hair, his lips moving against mine with a hunger that matched my own. We broke apart only when air became a necessity. Our foreheads pressed together, our breathing ragged. "Holy shit," Liam whispered, a shaky laugh escaping him. "Yeah, I managed," my voice thick with emotion. "I've wanted this for so long." "Me too," he said, his eyes shining. "I was so scared I'd screw this up." "You haven't?" I said, pulling him close again. "We'll figure it out. Together." The rain softened outside, and we stayed there on the couch, tangled in each other, the world narrowing to just us. The festival, the costumes, the jealousy, they all faded into the background. For the first time in years, I wasn't hiding, and neither was he. Notes on changes and extensions, characters, Sam narrator. Replacing Alex as a reserved graphic design student. Liam replacing Jake as a charismatic history major. Their dynamic retains the Friends Tulliver's tension, but with new personalities and backstories. Setting: the Halloween party is replaced with a university autumn festival in Seattle, complete with lanterns, food stalls, and a cozy grove for quieter moments. Length: the story is significantly longer, with added scenes, for example, the walk home, the grove conversation. The festival's atmosphere and deeper exploration of Sam's internal conflict and Liam's gradual realization. Emotional depth: extended dialogue and introspection highlight Sam's jealousy, Liam's confusion about his feelings, and their mutual fear of ruining their friendship. Climax: the confession and kiss are preserved, but enriched with more buildup and emotional weight, emphasizing the risk and relief of crossing that line. Let me know if you'd like further tweaks, additional scenes, or a different tone. I was straight. That's what I told myself every time Ethan's laugh cut through the noise of the crowded bar. Every time his shoulder brushed mine as we leaned over the same laptop screen. Every time he looked up from his sketchpad with that half smile that made my stomach flip. Just friendship. Just roommates. Just two guys sharing a cramped apartment in Chicago's Wicker Park, splitting rent and takeout and late-night study sessions. I was misreading my own feelings. Had to be. But then he'd stretch after a long day at the design studio, his t-shirt riding up just enough to show a strip of skin. Or he'd hum off-key while making coffee, or he'd just exist in the same room as me. And I'd think, asterisk, I've never wanted anything as much as I want to. Kiss you. Asterisk, it was late October, the kind of night where the wind off Lake Michigan sneaks through the cracks in our old windows and makes the radiator clank like it's dying. We were on the couch, some forgotten action movie flickering on the TV, when Ethan turned to me, his dark eyes catching the light from the screen. "Noah," my name cracked in my throat. "I've been in love with you since May." May. The word hit me like a freight train. All this time, he laughed, incredulous, and then he kissed me, not tentative, not careful, just sure. His hand slid into my hair, and I gripped his hoodie like it was the only thing keeping me from floating away. When we pulled apart, breathless, he stood and held out his hand. "Come on." "Where?" "My room. I want to hold you. If that's okay? I've imagined it so many times." And now he laughed again, giddy. "Now I actually get to." I took his hand. I woke to the gray Chicago morning, the kind where the sky looks like wet concrete and the L train rumbles in the distance. Ethan's arm was heavy across my chest, his breath warm against my neck. For a second, I didn't move. Afraid this was another dream, another night of waking up alone with the ache of wanting. But then he shifted, mumbling something about blueprints and coffee, and his arm tightened around me. This was real. We'd spent half the night talking. After that kiss, we'd ended up in his bed, tangled in sheets and confessions. He told me about the panic that had started creeping in every time he saw me with someone else. The way he'd tried to date women to prove he was still the guy he thought he was. The moment a month ago, When he'd been sketching in the park and realized he wasn't drawing the skyline, he was drawing me. I kept thinking, he said, his face half buried in my shoulder, if I didn't name it, it wouldn't be real. Like I could keep you as my best friend and ignore the rest. But it got harder every day. I admitted I'd been hiding it too. Thought I was so careful. Thought I was safe. You were, he said. I had no idea, Noah. That's what scared me most. That I'd finally figured out what I wanted and you might not want me back. Now in the soft morning light, I studied his face without shame. What? The faint scar above his eyebrow from a skateboard accident in high school. The way his lashes fanned out against his cheeks. The peaceful, open expression that made my chest ache. His eyes fluttered open. Confusion, then recognition, then a smile so bright it could have powered the whole city. Hi, he said, voice rough with sleep. Hi, this is real, right? Last night happened, unless we're having the same dream. He shifted closer, pressing a kiss to my jaw, then my cheek, then my lips soft, sweet, still a little unbelieving. How are you so perfect? I'm definitely not. You are to me. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with an expression so open it stole my breath. I'm trying to decide if I should be freaking out right now. Are you? No. That's the weird thing. I thought I would be. I thought admitting I have feelings for a guy for you would send me spiraling, but I just feel, right, like everything makes sense now. I reached up to trace his jaw. You don't have to have it all figured out. You can take this slow. He caught my hand, kissing my palm. I don't want slow. I've wasted enough time being confused. I know what I want. His eyes were serious. I want you. I want this. Whatever we're calling it, boyfriends? I offered, tentative. His smile could have lit up the entire apartment. Yeah, boyfriend. He tested the word, grinning. My boyfriend? Holy shit, that sounds good. We spent the morning in bed, not sexual, just learning. Ethan was tactile in a way I'd never experienced, constantly touching, his hand in my hair, his fingers tracing patterns on my back. Small kisses pressed to my collarbone, my wrist, the corner of my mouth. I have 2 years of not being able to do this to make up for, he said when I laughed. Let me be clingy. I'm not complaining. Around noon, hunger dragged us out. Ethan made pancakes while I sat on the counter, stealing bites of batter and watching him move around our tiny kitchen like he'd always belonged there. It was so domestic, so natural. So, he said as we ate, knees touching under the table. Logistics. Like who we tell. Yeah. When. How. He paused, uncertain. I'm not ashamed of this. Of us. But I'm still figuring things out about myself. I don't know if I'm ready to come out to everyone yet. Is that okay? I took his hand. Ethan, this is your timeline. We do this at whatever pace you're comfortable with. I'm not going anywhere. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. I think I need to tell my sister eventually. She'll be fine. But I want to be sure first. About me. About what this means. You don't have to have a label. I know. But I think I want to understand myself before I try to explain it to other people. He squeezed my hand. Now can we just be us? Tell close friends when it feels right, but otherwise keep this ours? Absolutely. He kissed me then, tasting like maple syrup and coffee, and I thought I could get used to this. The next few weeks were a study in contrasts. In public, we were the same as always, best friends, roommates, platonic. But the moment the apartment door closed, Ethan transformed. Affectionate to the point of insatiable. Always finding excuses to touch me, kiss me, to pull me close. I'm making up for lost time, he'd say, grinning against my neck. Our apartment became a sanctuary. We'd cook dinner together, Ethan wrapping his arms around me from behind while I chopped onions. We'd watch movies with my head on his chest, his fingers in my hair. We'd work at the kitchen table, our feet tangled underneath. The physical intimacy grew slowly. Naturally, we'd spend hours just kissing, learning each other. Ethan was enthusiastic but nervous, and I loved guiding him. Watching him discover what he liked. Is it always like this? He asked one night, breathless. After a particularly intense make-out session. This consuming? I think it's like this when it's right. It's so right, he breathed. Noah, this is so right. 2 weeks after that first kiss, Ethan came home from his design studio with a determined look. I told Lila, he announced. I looked up from my laptop. You told her about us? About me being... He paused, then smiled. About me being bi. That's what I am. I think it feels right. I stood, crossing to him. How'd it go? She was great. Said she'd been wondering since the rooftop party last summer. Apparently I have obvious hard eyes when I look at you. He wrapped his arms around my waist, which is fair. It's definitely due. You definitely do. I count on them daily. He kissed me softly. It felt good, saying it out loud. That you're my boyfriend, that this is my life now. Pride swelled in my chest. I'm proud of you. Over the following weeks, Ethan came out to more people. His sister first, then his queer cousin, who just said, about damn time. Each time, he came home more confident. He's more settled. It's weird. He said one night while we were making stir-fry, I spent so long being afraid of this, and now that I'm living it, I can't imagine being any other way. Like, how did I not know? Sometimes we can't see things until we're ready. Deep. He hip-bumped me, but accurate. We had our first fight 3 weeks in. Something stupid about laundry and deadlines that was really about the stress of finals and Ethan's anxiety about his thesis presentation. We both said things we didn't mean. I ended up in my own bed for the first time since we'd gotten together. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the wrongness of it. Around 3 a.m., the door creaked open. I can't sleep without you, Ethan said from the doorway. I tried. I hate it. Can I come in? Yes. Crawled in immediately, pulling me close. I'm sorry for what I said, for being a dick. I'm sorry too. We're going to fight sometimes, he said quietly. But this is forever for me, Noah. You're forever for me. One fight doesn't change that. Forever, I echoed. He kissed my forehead. I've never been more sure. At the 1-month mark, Ethan suggested we go back to the rooftop, where everything had started to shift. I want to be us there, he said. Publicly us. I'm ready. So we went. And when someone flirted with Ethan, he smiled and said, I'm flattered, but I'm here with my boyfriend. And looked at me with such obvious affection there was no question. By the end of the night, I wasn't just his roommate, I was his partner. That wasn't so bad, he said, as we walked home, hands linked. No, it was kind of amazing. November brought early snow, and our apartment's radiator became a nightly joke. But it also meant more excuses to stay close, bundled under blankets. Silver lining, Ethan said, pulling me against his chest. I get to keep you warm, my hero. Damn right. We developed rituals. Saturday morning coffee runs, Ethan ordering for both of us, Hishand finding mine. Sunday meal preps, moving around our tiny kitchen and sink. Wednesday date nights candles, pasta pretending, hand finding mine. Sunday meal preps, moving around our tiny kitchen and sink. Wednesday date night candles, pasta, pretending we were fancy. This is my favorite, Ethan said during one. The kitchen a disaster, but the food good. Just this. Being with you. Just this, I agreed. Thanksgiving loomed. Come with me, Ethan said. To my parents? I want them to meet you as my boyfriend, are you sure? I came out to them last week. They were surprised but supportive. Mom cried, good tears. I told them about you. How long I'd been in love with you without knowing. How happy you make me. He cupped my face. They want to meet the person who makes their son smile like an idiot? I make you smile like an idiot? The biggest idiot. It's embarrassing. I kissed him. Okay, I'll come. His childhood home in Evanston was exactly what I'd imagined, big windows. Books everywhere, his mom's art on the walls. They welcomed me warmly. His dad shook my hand and said, So you're the one, with a knowing smile. Over the weekend, Ethan held my hand at dinner, kissed me goodnight in front of his parents, introduced me to neighbors as his boyfriend without hesitation. This is who I am, he told his mom during a moment I overheard, and I've never been happier. I can see that, sweetheart. You light up around him. On the drive back, Ethan was quiet. Then thank you. For being patient, for giving me time, for not pushing, but being there when I was ready. Every moment of confusion was worth it because it led to this, to us, to understanding myself. You didn't just give me love, Noah. You gave me truth. I looked out the window, blinking back tears. I love you. I love you too. So much it scares me. Good scared? The best scared. Back home, we settled into routines, casual kisses while cooking, waking up tangled, stolen moments between classes. One Tuesday in early December, exactly 2 months after everything changed, we were on the couch. But instead of horror, Ethan had picked a rom-com, really. I teased. Our brand is evolving. We contain multitudes. Halfway through, he shifted. I'm thinking about that night. The L train. When I almost told you, but chickened out. Best decision I ever made. He traced my jaw. Truth finds a way. Love finds a way. Love finds a way, I repeated. He kissed me slowly. I have plans, Noah. Long-term plans. After graduation, a better apartment. Space for your coding setup. A drafting table for me. Maybe a dog. You've mentioned wanting a dog. I have. And then we just keep going. Because I want forever with you. I pulled him close. You're my forever too. Spring came. Cherry blossoms in Humboldt Park. Ethan aced his thesis. We were officially out for 4 months, his Instagram full of us. I lock screen a photo of him with frosting on his nose from his birthday. It wasn't perfect. We fought about dishes. His sketches everywhere. My forgetting to eat. But we learned to apologize. To choose each other. On a Tuesday night, back on the couch, horror movie playing. Ethan's head on my shoulder. I love our Tuesdays, he said. Think we'll still be doing this in 10 years? 20. If not, something's gone terribly wrong. He laughed. Good. Because I'm not done with you, Noah. Not even close. You're stuck with me forever. Terrible news. The worst. Then, softer. Thank you. For loving me. For being patient. For being my best friend and my boyfriend in my home. You're all that for me too. Outside. Spring rain pattered. Inside, we had everything. Sometimes the best love stories aren't dramatic. They're 2 people in a tiny apartment during a late-night L train rumble, realizing what they've been looking for was right there all along. Love is quiet, patient, built over Tuesday movie nights and Sunday, pancakes and 1,000 small moments of choosing each other. And sometimes, if you're lucky, love finds you when your roommate falls asleep on your shoulder, when the city hums outside, when all your walls come down. That's when forever begins.